I'd like to bring the meeting of November 25th to order, asking if anybody besides LCAT is recording this meeting.
Shirley Tancredi for the minutes.
Okay. I'd like to approve the minutes of the meeting of November 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Approve the minutes of the executive session of November 3rd.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And at this point, we'll be looking for the superintendent's report.
Thank you. With winter approaching, I thought it was a good idea to start getting the word out to residents what they could and should be doing during the winter time in order to get ready for winter, and also what they should be doing again during the winter season. I did set up a meeting with a reporter from the Reminder, and I expect that there'll be a article coming out in the next week or so focusing on a couple of items that as Mr. Collins will talk about, I believe they also did tour the DPW facility to take a look at how we respond and how we get ready for responding to snow events. Part of that is I thought it was worthwhile to get a couple of items in front of the board. One item is the procedure for making and what the town's responsibilities are relative to pothole claims. It's important to note that Mass General Law, Chapter 84, Section 15, is the section that really covers pothole claims and road defects in general.
Second document.
Okay. And the key point there is that Mass General Law specifically limits the town's liability to defects the town is aware of and that the town fails to repair within a reasonable amount of time. So I thought it was helpful to get that information out to the residents. Most importantly is to have residents aware that we really want them to call attention to any defects, any potholes that they find, so they get the word back to us as soon as possible so we can get out there and repair them as soon as possible and deal with the issue altogether. In the event that there is a claim, that there is any damage that results to a vehicle, residents have a 30-day time limit to file that claim. If the board is in agreement with the procedures that are put forward, what we would do is we would put those procedures on the town's website. We would put a filing form basically that would be filled out relative to applying for a claim on the website as well. And also just looking to note that residents need to be aware that during the wintertime there will be potholes. They're a fact of life. They should expect them and they should drive anticipating them. And if a vehicle is driving over the speed limit or at a speed that's not appropriate for the road conditions and they hit a pothole, the Mass General Law specifically prevents the town from taking on liability for that. It's really only when there's a defect that's been reported to the town, and should the town fail to repair that in a timely manner, those are the only types of claims that we can assume liability for.
Makes a lot of sense.
Should we put both of these policies on the website?
Definitely, that would be my recommendation. Following up on that, I did put forward what I believe is really a written statement of what the board had discussed, I believe, a year or two ago now, relative to mailbox repairs.
Yep.
And again, the key there on mailboxes and improvements in general that are put within the town right-of-way is they're all placed there really at the resident's risk. And that the town's liability relative to repairing those things are only relative to repairing a mailbox if we directly damage it or we damage it as a result of negligence on behalf of the town. Residents have an obligation to construct the mailboxes properly to make certain that the mailboxes are in good condition and have a mailbox that really can withstand heavy snow in the wintertime, because again, that's a fact of life. It is going to happen. And if plowing heavy snow along the side of the roadway damages a mailbox, that's not something that we can be liable for, because it is going to happen and your mailbox needs to be able to withstand that. If we damage a mailbox because we strike it directly, it's my understanding that the board's policy has been, and again, my goal here was to put in writing that the town's liability at that point would be to restore a mailbox with a standard mailbox that meets the U.S. Postal Service requirements on a standard 4x4 post. so that if a resident decided to go beyond that and construct a mailbox that was a very elaborate, very expensive mailbox, they are doing that at their own risk, because they are making improvements within the town of right-of-way that haven't been approved, that are, you know, potentially at risk of being damaged, because the right-of-way there is for the town's purpose, not for the residents' purpose.
And that's what happened the last time.
Yep, I
And,
agree.
You know, it was determined that it was not a plow that hit it. It was some other contractor backing up who knocked it over, because after investigating it, the angle in which it was laying was not anything that would have been done by hitting with a plow.
So in drafting these policies, and I'll say that they're not unique to the town, I reached out to a number of different towns, was able to obtain information, and many towns have a similar type of policy, because we all deal with the issue. Is really, again, documenting, I believe, what the board has previously discussed and previously decided, but again, putting it in writing so we can put it out there to the residents, put it on a website, and make everybody aware of it.
I like it.
I think putting it on the website would be great.
Good, so with that, I will go ahead forward, and in the next week or so, we'll arrange to get everything posted on the town's website. The next item I want to talk about tonight is the town's water meter change-out project, which we started, as the board members know, many years ago. We started that back in '07, as I understand it.
Yes.
And in the matter of 3 or 4 years, we were able to get most of the old manual read meters changed out to the radio read meters, which greatly reduced the amount of time and effort, and also the reliability and accuracy of the meter reads. Since that time, we have been working to get the remaining meters changed out to the radio reads, and we've gone a long way towards that, but we still have 68 residences, or 68 properties, that we have not been able to get access into to change out the meters. We have attempted in almost every way that we can think of, in terms of, you know, having staff, when they're driving down the road, they basically have a list of residents that they keep an eye out for, that if someone is home, they'll knock on the door, they'll introduce themselves, they'll explain the situation. And that's generally been pretty effective. At that point, when they make face-to-face contact with a resident, they generally get pretty good reception for the resident. We've tried letters, we've tried flyers, things like that, but we're down to 68 properties that have become very difficult for us to get access to.
Why don't we send them a certified shut-off notice?
That's certainly one strategy.
That was my thought, shut the water off and you got their attention.
Right.
Right.
He's got another one that I think will work
Yeah.
probably almost as effectively.
The thought, and one of our staff members, Judy Pichetta, came up with this idea after actually doing some research in terms of what other cities and towns do. The reality is that having to do these manual reads cost us time and cost the town money. And as a deterrent, it's very appropriate and very defensible to say that those residents that aren't willing to offer us access to the property should be paying us the added cost, the added administrative cost, the added staff cost of doing the manual reads as opposed to doing the automatic reads, and then having to spend more time in the office massaging the data because it doesn't get entered in automatically like the radio reads. So what I'd recommend is that we adopt a quarterly fee that is intended to cover the added administrative cost that we apply across every single manual read. Everybody lives by the same rules, of $25 per quarter, or would ultimately amount to $100 per year of added cost, which would be about doubling the minimum bill per year.
I don't think it's enough.
I don't need it. But I like the
I like it,
concept. I'd
yeah.
rather go $50.
I'd rather go 50 bucks.
Okay. And I believe that's defensible if you take a look at the
Well, I
time.
think $50 is more what it costs us to
Right.
send a person out there to
Yeah.
such
by
a
the time-
trip and then
Yeah, by the
and then
time
bring
he
it in.
drives out there, reads the meter,
Right.
brings it back in, they punch it into the computer.
Yeah, the recalculator.
Yeah, I think $50 is probably, so it'd be $200 a year.
Many times we find out once we finally get access to one of these residents, many times there's an issue with the meter. And the meter isn't working properly, it's been dragging over the years, and then we get into a whole issue of how to catch up on, in some cases, years' worth of data that needs to be manually adjusted and corrected, and the residents sometimes are unhappy because they get a very large bill as a result of that. So we really need to make these go away if we can.
I think we only do it for a limited period and then we
Then we shut the
Shut it
water
off.
off.
shut it off. I mean, we don't go on forever.
Right.
Because some people don't even look at their water bills. I think they just write a check and, you know.
So the idea is maybe we do it for 6 months or something like that, and tell everybody right up front, here's your grace period essentially.
Yeah.
And when we get to the end of the grace period, we're going to go to the next step.
I think we've been doing this since '07. I
Yeah,
think we've already
7
given them
years.
a grace
Yeah.
period.
Okay.
I agree, I like it.
We'll be changing those meters out.
And we are getting to the point where some of the life of some of the meters we put in 7 years ago are starting to wind down. So we are, the cycle never ends. It will keep repeating itself.
Enough is enough.
It won't be done in mass this time. It'll be done, one at a time as we start to see readings that are a suspect, and we go into the property and we find out that the meter is reading incorrectly.
Now, do we have a software that'll help us kind of get that analytical data automatically, or?
We definitely do, in fact. I think it's become more and more sophisticated where it helps us tell us where there's problems and also then helps us to predict what bills should be based upon historical information.
Oh, good.
So, where we get to a point where we can't read a meter for some reason, we have a pretty reliable system of estimating bills that gets us pretty close to what that bill should be.
Right, but on the new automatic ones, is there something that's watching?
Yes.
And then boom, it runs a list or something that, you can run a list, I guess, that,
There is a list that you can run for the read. And
that's awesome.
It gives you, sometimes it gives you information.
Some outliers to take a look at.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And there is a new module that our meter supplier has developed that we're starting to look at, again, going to the next generation as well. It becomes smarter and smarter and does some of
Right.
what you're looking for.
Awesome.
Where do you buy those meters?
Badger.
They're Badger
They're
meters.
Badger
they're
meters.
standardized. There's several different manufacturers that we work with, and begins with an S.
Styles?
Styles,
Styles.
yes. We've looked at them, and they give us a very competitive price
Yeah.
and give us the standard meter that we've decided upon.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, just a quick item, I did want to note to the board that myself and Roy Esposito participated today with a local emergency planning committee tabletop exercise, which the emergency planning committee does on a periodic basis. Sometimes they do full-scale exercises, sometimes they do tabletop exercises. And it was a good opportunity to get all the departments in town together, talk about what-ifs. The scenario that was presented today was a fuel truck that turned over and took out a utility pole right in front of the high school. And what are the steps that would have to be followed, and what are the things to be watched out for? And it was, again, a good process to go through and just think through what would you do if and when something like that happened.
Did they bring that tank over to the fire station to cut up?
That was unrelated to this activity,
Yeah.
but yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this was strictly a tabletop exercise that was done at the Council on Aging with all the departments present.
Right.
Awesome.
Enterprise fund policy, I believe, as the board is aware, I met with myself and Mr. Burek met with the Board of Selectmen on, I believe it was the 19th of November. Really as a follow-up to what the Appropriations Committee had been encouraging the Board of Selectmen to do, which is to move forward with adopting a policy for apportionment of direct and indirect costs for the enterprise fund. I believe we got a very positive response back from the Board of Selectmen, and they essentially asked us to provide them with a copy of what we had developed and had previously provided them in electronic format. I believe they are planning to move forward to endorse that. I don't have a date for that yet, but I did give Mr. Brewer a copy of that. My expectation was that was going to be an item that the Board of Selectmen would take up and act upon finally.
Be good.
Another item to make the board aware of, Altus Solar, which is the company that we have contracted with to purchase net metering credits. They have tentatively scheduled a site tour for December 4th at 3 p.m. Their construction is continuing. They've finished the earthwork. They're starting to ship in the modules for the solar arrays. So it's tentative at this point. They suggested the 4th. I had suggested 3 p.m. because of some other commitments. I haven't got a confirmation back from them, but that's the date I believe that their construction coordinator for the company is going to be in town.
At the gravel pit?
At the gravel pit, yeah,
Yep.
in Hamden. And I did want to note for the board's benefit too that the town of Belchertown has recently executed a similar contract with Altus as well. It appears to be to take up the remainder of the power that this facility would be generated, as well as I believe a facility in Sheffield that Altus is developing.
Same dollar values?
That I'm checking. The town manager from Belchertown was out of town last week.
Oh, okay.
And he was the individual, as I understand, that was directly involved in negotiation. We did have a commitment from Altus that there were any deals that they offered to other communities, they would provide the same deal to us, since we were the first
Yeah,
community in the
you
gate.
sent me that email, yeah.
So I did want to confirm that Belchertown was, that anything that they might be receiving, that we receive at least the same, if not better deal.
If all three of us show up, we have to post it. Can you do that for us?
Sure.
Yeah. Because I would like to
Not that
go out
we'll
there.
conduct meeting, you know.
No, but I'd
we'll
like to
conduct
take a
business,
look at
but
it.
if we did, I don't want to be
Right.
on the wrong
Yeah.
side of that rule, so.
Understand.
I plan on being there,
Yeah,
me
I'd
too.
like to see it, yeah.
so you can pick me up.
Okay, you got it. I'll pick you up, but Danny's buying the coffee.
Good.
Because he was late.
Make certain the minutes say that. Moving on, I just wanted to note, oh, good. That Tom Pope, I know members of the board are aware of who Tom is. Tom recently received his grade 2 distribution system license, so he is actively studying for his grade 3, is hoping to take the
Awesome.
test as soon as he can for the grade 3.
That's great.
That's on the water side?
That's on
Yeah.
the water distribution operator, yes. There is currently in Massachusetts no collection system operator certification procedure on the wastewater side of the equation. So if we had a wastewater treatment plant, we would have to have a certified operator, but wastewater pumping stations and pipes do not require any certified operators, or there's no certification for those operators. On a related item, I did want to make the board aware that we have made one change relative to our, primarily our water pumping stations, primarily the Chestnut Street water pumping station. We, for a number of years, have staffed that facility 7 days a week. We staff that because we believe that's what Mass DEP required, based on what we are told verbally probably 6 or 7 years ago now. We had a goal of looking to treat the pumping station operators the same as our other staff that provide standby services, because that's what the pump station operators do, is they're available every other week 24/7 to respond to anything that might come up. They have laptops they take home, when the alarms go off, they go online, they address the problem most times without actually having to leave the site. They don't get paid for that time because they don't punch in, they don't punch out, and there was no provision for covering them under any sort of a standby provision. But it was somewhat taken care of by the fact that they had to show up every Saturday and Sunday. In reaching out to Mass DEP, it became clear that, in fact, we don't have to man that facility 7 days a week. We, in fact, don't have any specific operator staffing requirements. Even though that facility is considered a treatment facility because it only provides disinfection within the distribution system, it's covered under the distribution system license. So in fact, we don't have to meet the treatment facility staffing requirements there. That allows us, with a little bit of automation change, to basically run that station 5 days a week as opposed to running it 7 days a week.
Just Chestnut or Harkness too?
Chestnut is the only station that has any type of treatment, so that's the
Okay.
only station that there was a potential we were pulled into the treatment requirements. Again, DEP has confirmed in writing that those requirements don't actually apply to us, so we don't have the requirement to be there 7 days a week. That then allows us to staff the facility on a reduced time, which saves us money, and also essentially allows us to treat our pumping station operators who have been providing standby services for many years and probably compensated for that by the extra time they worked on a weekend, by basically putting them in the same category as we do with our other standby operators that are paid to be available if and when necessary. So I think we addressed some long-term issues, and ultimately I believe we're also going to be able to save some money, particularly this time of year. In the summertime, it's really up to management to decide how many days a week we want to staff that facility. If we're in the middle of the summertime and everything is running full bore, there may be some days that we want to have an operator there 6 days a week or 7 days a week.
So whose
But
distribution?
that's our discretion.
Whose distribution license is it run under? Springfield's or?
We have a number of grade 3 distribution operators. Felix
You
Vachon.
said it ran under a different license.
It's not a treatment facility, it's
It
like a,
It's a treatment system within a distribution facility.
Okay.
And I'm certain that the state several years ago told us a different answer to that question. At that point, they told us because we disinfect, it is a treatment facility unto itself, and we have to staff it like a treatment facility. They have subsequently gone back, they've researched their regulations, they've put in writing the regulation that specifically excludes distribution facilities, treatment facilities that exist solely within the distribution system for disinfection purposes.
So we have a distribution license,
Correct.
and within that distribution system, this is being disinfected.
That's correct.
So it's covered by that first license.
Right. We actually don't have to have treatment facility operators because that facility isn't considered a treatment facility. We do have several. We do both Felix Vachon and Darrell Keene are, as is myself.
Right.
I would continue to keep that requirement, I believe, within the pump station operator requirement because it reinforces the skills that are necessary, but
know
it's
the
not a
right stuff.
regulatory
Yeah.
requirement.
You got somebody watching the water quality that understands it.
Correct. So the main benefit, again, is it takes us out of one of the regulatory categories, gives us a lot more management flexibility, which ultimately, I believe, is going to allow us to save some money on staffing time
Awesome.
by not having to be there 7 days a week and really have very little activity on a Saturday and Sunday, but we went there because we had to go there. Now we don't.
Okay. Sounds good.
A couple of other quick items, primarily schedule items. We have, all town departments have the Appropriation Committee meeting on December 2nd, which is essentially the kickoff meeting in which the Appropriations Committee lays out procedures and policies for this year going forward. And I believe that's 6 p.m. on December 2nd.
Yes.
We are then looking well ahead. We are scheduled to meet specific to the DPW's operating budget, total budget, on February 3rd with appropriations. So the first meeting on December 2nd is general to all town departments, and then the meeting on February 3rd will be specific to DPW.
Do you know what time on the 3rd?
6:30.
I believe so, yeah.
6:30 on the 3rd.
We'll confirm that as we get close, but I did also want to note that our trade union is having their annual Christmas dinner on December 12th and has invited myself and the board as well and other managers of the department to come to that Christmas dinner.
That's at noon?
I believe at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock?
Correct. And then lastly, for you to think about probably for the next couple of moments before we wrap up is we probably should try to schedule the next 2 meetings and try to get back onto a regular schedule so it's easier, I think, for everybody to plan if we just start trying to. We were bouncing around a little bit for a while and it didn't work out well.
Good.
So with that, I'm done.
Okay.
Sounds good. We'll move on to the Building Facilities Manager's Report. Mr. Feeney.
Few items for the board. A completed project here at the service building was the furnace replacement back in the sign shop. We replaced 2 of the 334,000 BTU barge units with 2 Modine 160,000 BTU units. So we should see some savings as far as our gas usage in that building. Also, we have continued to look at Meadowbrook Schools' electricity usage. It's been up probably about a third for the last couple of months. I did reach out to National Grid to discuss if they've seen any abnormalities at that facility. They told me they have had some previous problems with the meter out there. They're going back out there to check to make sure the meter is functioning properly.
Meadowbrook, didn't we
Yeah.
just run a new service in there?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So it was kind of caught us off guard, I guess you could say. But we did purchase a metering device. It's a logging device that actually we're going to put onto the system, onto the service. I guess it just monitors. We set the parameters on the 24-hour period. It can give us our peak and off-peak usage information. We can take that back and then subsequently we can narrow it down to each individual circuits and everything else. So we received the meter yesterday, so starting Monday, December 1st, we're going to start actually going through the building and logging some of that information to see if we can find out who or what piece of equipment is the culprit, if any.
So it's up a third off of what, last year?
Yes, yes, the past couple of months.
Right.
has been.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat anomalous. If you take a look at the other school buildings, it's not tracking, it's tracking at a much steeper increase this year than previous years. It's the service upgrade and the timing of the usage change is a little suspicious. You know, at times you can have grounding problems and other things that come up that you start losing power that you didn't lose before. So there may be some connection to what was done on the service work.
And they're working with you?
National Grid is, I actually asked them to see if they could provide some kind of metering device, and they don't provide that service, so.
Not when it's high.
Right. But like you said,
If it was low, they'd have been right out.
Yeah.
We've been here this afternoon.
We did reap some of those benefits for the month of August. There was no meter, so it was, I guess a little payback.
Yeah, but the building was empty.
Yeah. So, like you said, we can actually use that device for other locations if we need to do so, if we see any other abnormalities in any other part of the facility. So it'd probably be a benefit for the department to have a piece of equipment like that.
And where I've seen it really pay off is if you're taking a look at off-peak usage, what's happening at nighttime. All of a sudden you
Right.
find out your nighttime demand is a lot higher than you expect it to be. What's turned on that shouldn't be turned on?
Right.
So you thinking it could be caused by a grounding issue too?
It's possible. There.
Yeah, could be a lot of things, and what's kind of suspicious is because of our energy management system. A lot of the big pieces of equipment shuts down at night.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we're trying to figure it out and determine what's causing it. Moving on, capital updates. Town Hall rooftop replacement unit. Received a curb adapter yesterday. We're scheduled for install on December 15th, which is a Monday. Replacing that unit with a 12.5-ton high-efficiency unit. Should see some significant cost as far as that unit. We are scheduling that on a Monday because we're going to need a crane, and I've actually reached out to Greg Dobeck to let him know. We are using his parking lot in the rear there. Should only take a few hours to pick the old unit and direct replace with the new unit.
Where's this at?
Town Hall.
Town hall.
Yep. It's part of a capital appropriation we received this past year. Police station fire alarm, bid release date will be tomorrow. Scheduled bid opening will be December 10th at 10 a.m. in the DPW office, second floor, Town Hall. Birchland Park chiller project is complete. The unit's complete. They've run just a brief startup, but actually calibrating the unit will not take place until actually April, once the temperature outside is roughly above 80 degrees, so they can calibrate unit, check pressures, and everything else that goes along with that unit. I am holding back about $4,000 until that project is complete, but the unit's in place and everybody's happy. Another note for the board, Town Hall Infrastructure Improvement Project was supported by the Board of Selectmen at their meeting held on November 20th. So I believe all parties at the Town Hall, including this board and the department heads at the Town Hall, are all in support of the project. So we're looking forward to meeting with the Capital Planning Committee to get their support on this project also.
Sounds great. That leads to Mr. Collins.
We finished the installation of the water main on Millbrook. We have 12 services that still need to be
Tied in.
before that project is finished. The last few days, knowing the storm was coming, we worked a little harder in the paving area to make sure that it was all paved in the event that winter comes on all of a sudden, and we weren't able to go any further with that, that there wouldn't be any issues with the road surface. Hopefully, still hopeful that we get some nice weather over the next week or two and we can complete that. That's still our goal. I believe Mr. Parent and I talked and think that it was, we completed more out there than we thought we might, and the weather's cooperating for us. So
Yeah, we're
in-
getting some great weather.
we're in a good place there. We didn't, I don't think, originally expect to get the job completed this year, in that we started a little bit later than we would have hoped. But again, now we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully we can get that wrapped up in its entirety. As Mr. Parent said, there was an interview with him up at the town hall, and that gentleman came down here to the service building today, and we went through some of the steps that we go through preparing for a snowstorm, some of our equipment. He touched base a little bit on the October storm that was so devastating a few years back, and the damages and what our role was at that time. And it was a good interview. I brought him through the building, we looked at some of the vehicles, the salt shed, and those types of things, and went through that process. And that's what we've been doing for the last couple of days, preparing for this upcoming storm. Now, you know, we probably start putting the sanders together in the beginning of November. It's a process of knowing that we're going to get to this place. Once the storm comes, once we know it's there, it's knocking at the door, it kicks into another gear. Last couple of days, we've put plows on, we've made sure everything's greased, oil, hydraulic fluids in play, every vehicle, and we're in excellent shape. We have a few vehicles that we're touching up, some minor things tomorrow. Aside from that, every plow is on, all the sanders are up and running. We have plenty of salt in the box, so we're in very good shape for the upcoming storm and going into the season. I don't see any issues with that at all. In wrapping up some of the things that we had on our plate, Mountain View School had ordered a swing set, and it was a rather large swing set, in replacing a playscape unit that they had outside of their building. They had ordered it some time ago. We were in communication with the principal there, and it did finally come in about a week ago. So we had the opportunity and the weather to go out and replace that, pour the concrete today, set the swing set, so that is set and done, as well as replace some sidewalks. So today we did a concrete pour, and we're able to wrap up, I think, probably all the concrete work what we'll have on our plate for this year. And so going forward, we have some more blacktop work to do in small areas around town, road improvements to help prevent us from having to do pothole work throughout the course of the winter, providing we have a week or two of good weather going forward. But as far as wrapping everything up, we're in very good shape.
Sounds great.
It looks like, I know Lane has indicated that they're open until, I believe, the 2nd or 3rd of December.
Yes.
Palmer Paving hasn't yet set a deadline, so, you know, we may still have a couple of weeks, weather permitting, where the plants are open, that we can do some late season proactive repair work.
Yeah, typically, if there's no frost in the ground, Palmer usually stays open.
Yep.
How do we stand with seal cracking?
Started today.
You'll hear it in 30 seconds.
If there's no questions, I'm
You
good.
finished?
Yes.
Great. That leaves Dan.
All right, I got 4 things. The first one is crack sealing. I started today. They did Summers Road. We had identified about 10 miles of primarily major roads within town to do. We think we can get 3 this year if the weather cooperates. So they started today 7,200 feet on Summers Road. I don't know if they finished it all. I know they were.
Did you say 7,200?
7,200 from here to Michael?
Michael.
This is
Michael,
Main
yeah.
Street. Then we had in North Main, we've got a couple locations, a little bit of Maple. I've got a list.
Yep.
So crack sealing out of Taunton wanted, the price was good. It was $8.93 a gallon. Danny Savio
Yes.
he's actually done this work before, worked for Heartline.
Yep.
I didn't realize it till we talked this morning, it was great, so it's a perfect guy inspecting the work, so he was out there with him today.
That's good.
And the key in crack sealing is what we're trying to do is preserve roads that are in good condition. You know, roads that, you know, if we keep the water out of the sub base, they're gonna last another 5 or 10 years. If the water gets in, then we start losing the road.
Right, and tied to link this, you know, called the cold patch, you don't want to be adding that all winter. The second thing's the test and seal project that we talked about. We get, the bid opening is on the 5th of December, 1 PM at the second floor. We've got five, and today I found another 6 potential bidders. Hoping we can get 3 or 4 would be great.
Is that the INI?
Yes.
Yeah, the INI project, so it's the sewer main and the manholes.
Right.
So again, the 5th, that'll happen. Hopefully we'll get a number of bidders for that.
So you're thinking you're gonna get 5 or 6 bidders?
Well, I don't know. I get 5 or 6 who potentially could bid. I just had a bad email address on the prior one.
Well,
I
okay.
had Green Mountain out of Vermont. He said, we'll definitely bid it, so hopefully we get at least 3.
Yeah.
Let's see. But if we have 4 or 5 potentially could bid it.
That's good.
Let's see, last Wednesday, Bob, myself met with Nick Bro, Billy Gorman, and 2 folks from DEP to talk about the landfill.
Right.
And we basically just went through, you know, responsibilities and just kind of overall picture of what we need to do and the schedule, and so that everybody was on board and understood what the process was going forward. A couple issues we raised, one is record notice, which just means we'd have to file something saying there's a landfill. And there's potentially a small sliver of land that's owned by a private landowner. So we talked about that, just record notice. Second thing is there is a requirement in there for independent engineer. And we're obviously trying to minimize having to
Right.
get somebody outside as much as possible. So we talked about how we could minimize that, still do most of the work, but have somebody independently verified or sign off.
Just take the soil samples, or?
Well, really to say that the work was done in accordance with the regulations and the plan work.
Okay, so we would take the soil samples and have them tested, and then they just review?
Well, maybe more than that, maybe, you know, certifying that we've got the right slope on the cover thickness was right.
Right.
The cap was right, the right amount of topsoil, but looking at, right, the soil samples as well.
Right.
And just kind of signing off independently on the project.
So we meet the elevations that we need to have for cover?
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, we haven't given up entirely in trying to convince DEP that, you know, we have 2 professional engineers on staff. They're really looking for a entity that is licensed, that is
Third party?
qualified,
so to
that
speak?
is willing to basically own quality control on the job.
Right.
They feel a little bit more comfortable if that entity is not under the direct employ of the operator or owner of the landfill,
Right.
but whether the town is paying someone through their payroll or they're paying somebody through a consulting firm. I don't
Yeah.
see it being that much different. But
There's
we'll-
not a whole lot of difference.
we, you know, we're looking at some innovative things. There might be some sole practitioners out there that are willing to team up with us, things like that, that we can keep it to a minimum.
Minimize the cost. So
Yep.
that's one of the outstanding things we have to work through. We have, obviously, it's a multi-year project through fiscal 18 for the capping, so we have some time to iron that out. So that's it. And the 4th one is on Spruce Street.
Did you want to talk about Allen just for a second?
Oh, yeah, that's right, thank you. Allen Street, they did raise Allen Street landfill, which
Yep.
I'm learning about. That's on their radar screen, it's not something they're gonna drop on us tomorrow with similar letters like we got for Summers, but they realize it's a landfill that needs to get capped at some point in the future.
Right.
It's-
And they were, you know, they were encouraging us to try to look for opportunities where there's a purpose for taking care of that landfill, whether it's a solar development, whether it's some other use for the property that you can get a dual benefit out of it, because it's a pretty unique piece of property.
Right.
There are some issues regarding land ownership, since the town only owns about 1/3 of the property, is one
Right.
of the big issues. No, that's really the biggest issue entirely, is that the town only has a certain amount of control over that property. And if that changes sometime in the future and the town has complete control over the property, that may open up some opportunities that we don't have right now.
Right.
Right. So they're not pushing that as fast as Summers Road?
No, and I suspect they'd give us time to get through Summers Road before they. they'd
Before
probably then
they start moving it, yeah.
Yeah, Summers Road, our ultimate deadline is 2019.
2019, capping through 18,
Yeah.
fiscal 18.
Right, right,
Close
right.
everything
So,
into 19, so.
you know, as we get through there, then maybe at that point, then we're starting to talk about the high teens or 20s. You know, so it's years probably from now when they start to push that issue. Again, unless there's something an opportunity that presents itself that makes sense for the town to move forward faster, whether it's redevelopment, whether it's something else that would be in the best interest to the town to help defray the cost of what might have to be done.
Yep, agreed. And then the last one was 40 Spruce Street for the planning board stormwater review. The Contest Laboratories is proposing a laboratory and storage facility, 40 Spruce Street, up
Yep.
this existing building there now. Also,
There's a house and they're gonna
couple of
add a
buildings
building.
and a parking area in the back. So we just submitted comments today to the planning board for review of that.
Same side as Spruce Street that they're on, or the
No.
opposite?
The opposite.
No, you know the
The other
house,
side.
that Ray's Ranch? He bought that Ray's
The
Ranch.
gray one,
Yeah,
right behind A.W. Brown,
yeah.
on that
Yep,
side of the
yep,
street.
yep, yep, yep.
And our concerns were primarily related to stormwater management. They filed stormwater management report, so we reviewed it to look for, to make sure they were complying.
What are they gonna use for stormwater, like storm tech or?
The overland flow to an infiltration trench and then a detention pond with an outlet. That's really what they're proposing. No underground structures.
No what? No underground?
Catch basins, no
No underground
piping.
structures?
Yeah, all surface drainage.
It's all gonna sheet flow into a
Yep.
detention pond?
Yep.
Okay,
That's it.
sounds great. Any other business?
I think other than talking about our next meeting dates, and I had looked ahead and thought that perhaps the 9th and the 23rd might get us back into some sort of a regular schedule for December. But to meet sooner than the 9th is probably too soon.
I
The
can't
9th
do
would be
the-
2 weeks
I
out.
can't do the
Yeah,
9th.
okay.
I can do the 23rd.
I guess we're on your schedule, buddy.
No, I can do Monday or I can do Wednesday, I can do the 8th or the 10th.
8th or 10th?
Yep.
So you wanna go to Mondays?
8th is
Doesn't
good.
matter,
Huh?
doesn't matter.
8th is good.
Yeah, let's go Monday.
8th and 22nd.
8th and 22nd.
December-
You're not golfing anymore on Monday? Might be nice.
Someplace warm?
So 8th and 22 at 5?
Works for me.
Okay.
8 and 22. I couldn't think of a place I'd rather be.
Yeah.
Right, Bob?
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to adjourn, to go into open session.
No.
Make a motion to go into executive session, only to return to, or we're not returning. Okay, make a motion, we go into executive session, not to return to open session.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Mr. Bjork, yes?
Mr. Mayberry, yes?
Aye.
Mr.
Yes.
Payne,
Your name is?
Your name is?
Mr. Wilson.